to talk more about the cold peace, as it's known, between Israel and Egypt, we're joined by independent political commentator Nervana Mahmoud. Great to have you with us, Nervana. And looking back all those years ago, it was an unbelievable act of courage, wasn't it, by the Egyptian President Sadat to not only visit Israel, but then to go ahead and normalise ties. And it was an act that cost him his life, ultimately. How is he viewed as a historical figure in Egypt today?
Thanks, Laura, and you're absolutely right. Sadat was brave. Sadat was a patriot who put the country interest above everything else. And I believe that the vast majority of the Egyptian people appreciate what he has done for them and for Egypt. He promised that he will bring back Sinai, and he did. He was aware of all the, he had a strategic eye. He could see that he has to do the peace after the war. He has to start and prove that Egypt is willing for peace. It just wants its land back. And that's what he did and what he delivered. And as you said, he lost his life for that. A day I will never forget. And I think for that, he earned his position in the history of Egypt and the Middle East.
And of course, he was murdered because of his move to make peace with Israel. He was murdered by those who opposed peace with Israel. That opposition just lasts to this day, doesn't it? Not everyone in Egypt wants peace with Israel.
Yes. Sadat, as I said, he was a great leader, but not without his mistakes. He welcomed and opened the country to the Muslim Brotherhood and many Islamist groups. And he did that with goodwill. He wanted to reverse some of the bad policy of Nasser before him. But I remember the last year of his life, he even acknowledged in one of his speeches that was a mistake because the Islamists have turned a substantial section of the Egyptian society against him, and that was a fatal ending his life. And the Islamist group are still in Egypt. If you add to them the leftist pro-Nasser groups are still in Egypt, and both of them are not necessarily friendly to the peace process, although they accept it, but not necessarily friendly to it.
It was very much a government-to-government peace, wasn't it, Nervana? There is barely any cooperation today beyond defence. Why do you think the relationship has failed to progress, has failed to flourish? Is it cultural? Is it strategic? Is it a fear of the Muslim Brotherhood?
No, I beg to differ. I looked at the numbers, and there are actually the economic ties between Egypt and Israel increased dramatically over the years. In 1995, the trade between the two countries was only about 5 million, but increased dramatically. And 2021, I believe it was between 125 million to 300 million. But now there is expectations that by 2025, it will reach 700 million. Egypt and Israel export chemicals, rubber, a lot of IT stuff to Egypt, and import from Egypt a lot of agriculture products. If you add to that the huge historic gas cooperation between the two countries, so in a way there are some positive aspects to the normalization that start to evolve.
Absolutely. Sorry, carry on, Nervana.
But you're right about the social and cultural aspect. Even during the Abraham Accord, a lot of analysts made a differentiation between the countries who went to war with Israel and the country who never had war with Israel. There is a lot of family in Egypt who still have a member of the family who was injured or killed in either the Six-Day War or in the Yom Kippur War, 1973. So there is still a psychological trauma. But I would argue that what we are witnessing in the last decade or so is what I call normalization of the enemy, in between arrows. villainous portrayal of Israel in the 50s and 60s is nowhere near now. So even those who are opposed the deal have started to accept Israel because every day they tune to news channel and they found an Israeli commentator commenting about the news. So things have changed, but not necessarily complete or as the peace advocate wish.
And of course, Egypt did take part most recently in the Negev Forum just over a year ago. That was the follow-up to the Abraham Accords. That did seem like a rare glimmer of hope, didn't it? Looking ahead, Nervana, where do you see the relationship going from here?
I still feel that the pragmatism will prevail, but it depends on factors between the two countries. The hardliner in both sides will win if they stand to have, control in the corridors of power or the policymaker. So if there is a hardline government in Israel, it will provoke hardliner response or inside the Arab world, and it will make things difficult to the peace advocate on both sides. So it depends. Things change in the ground. There is a lot of ups and downs. Some governments have better relationship with policymakers in Egypt than others, and it depends. But I believe that Egypt is committed to the peace because it realized that opening a border now or a tension in Sinai is the last thing Egypt needs.
Nervana, we very much appreciate your analysis. Thank you very much indeed. Nervana Mahmoud there.
You're more than welcome.